It was supposed to be just another award show moment. Bright lights, big names, and predictable wins. But in a matter of seconds, everything changed. Because when Kendrick Lamar stepped onto that stage, it didn't feel like a routine victory. It felt like a statement. And not just any statement. One that instantly put Drake right at the center of the conversation. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The crowd was cheering, the cameras were flashing, and the energy was exactly what you'd expect from a major awards night. But then came that moment, the one fans can't stop replaying. As Kendrick accepted the award, his presence alone shifted the atmosphere. Calm, focused, almost surgical in the way he carried himself. No over-celebration, no unnecessary words, just control. And that's when all eyes quietly turned to Drake. It wasn't something obvious, no dramatic reaction, no headline-worthy outburst, but it didn't need to be, because sometimes the smallest details say the most. A look, a pause, a subtle shift in expression. That was enough. Within minutes, clips started spreading everywhere. Fans slowed it down, zoomed in, analyzed every frame. Some said Drake looked caught off guard. Others claimed he looked frustrated, like he knew this moment meant more than just another award. And once those interpretations started circulating, the internet did what it always does. It turned a moment into a movement. Because this wasn't just about who won. It was about what the win represented. Kendrick's victory didn't feel random. It felt like part of a bigger pattern. A streak that's been building momentum, stacking recognition, and reinforcing his position in a way that's impossible to ignore. And with every win, the comparisons to Drake get louder. Who really controls the culture? Who defines this era? Those questions are getting harder to answer, and moments like this only make it more intense. Meanwhile, Kendrick didn't say much on stage, but that's exactly what made it powerful. Because he didn't need to explain anything. The moment spoke for itself. The reaction spoke for itself. The shift in energy spoke for itself. And now, the entire hip-hop world is locked into one question. Did Kendrick just change the awards game for good and catch Drake completely off guard? The night began like any other awards show. Glittering lights, cameras flashing, fans buzzing in anticipation, and a familiar feeling that anything could happen. But as soon as Kendrick Lamar stepped onto the stage, it became immediately clear that this night was going to be different. Something about the way he carried himself, calm, confident, and completely in control, instantly shifted the energy in the room. The audience, the cameras, and even his peers seemed to sense it. It wasn't just a win waiting to happen. It felt like a statement was about to be made, one that would ripple far beyond the walls of the venue. Fans and media alike were quick to notice the change. At first glance, the award seemed routine, just another accolade in a long list of achievements. But Kendrick's presence transformed it into something much more significant. With a subtle nod, measured movements, and a controlled delivery during his acceptance, he made it clear that this moment wasn't just about recognition. It was about asserting his influence and commanding attention. Every eye was on him, and in that spotlight, everything around him seemed to fit. Of course, all this meant that all eyes quickly turned to Drake, who was sitting in the front row. Fans had been anticipating a potential reaction, but what happened next was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. There was no dramatic display, no outward celebration or protest. Instead, a small shift in expression, a slight pause, and a micro-reaction that sent social media into overdrive. Those seconds were analyzed endlessly, slowed down, and replayed across platforms. Fans and commentators debated whether Drake looked surprised, frustrated, or simply caught off guard. And while Drake himself didn't address it publicly, the moment spoke volumes. The genius of Kendrick's approach was in its restraint. He didn't need to say anything to dominate the conversation. His presence alone created the narrative. Hip-hop fans, analysts, and media commentators all started piecing together what this moment meant. Not just for the award itself, but for the larger dynamics in the industry. It wasn't just a victory. It was a calculated display of influence, a subtle reminder of Kendrick's position at the top, and a quiet challenge to others in the room, particularly Drake. The ripple effect was immediate. Clips of the moment flooded social media within minutes. Fans on X, Instagram, and TikTok began posting slowed-down versions of the footage, zoomed-in reactions, and even side-by-side comparisons with previous award shows. Analysts created detailed breakdowns, interpreting every micro-expression, every pause, every gesture. The narrative shifted from Kendrick won an award to Kendrick just flipped the awards game, and Drake wasn't ready. And it wasn't just about personal rivalry. The larger implication of this moment began to emerge. Kendrick's win highlighted a shift in influence, signaling that his cultural and artistic authority extends beyond commercial success. While Drake is known for dominating charts and maintaining global relevance, Kendrick's focus on artistic impact and narrative control presents a different kind of power, one that commands attention without needing constant validation. Fans also began revisiting Kendrick's recent releases and lyrics for context. Lines that once seemed abstract or introspective were suddenly reinterpreted as foreshadowing this precise moment. Each verse, each bar, each subtle message in his tracks seemed interconnected, forming a pattern that only now made sense. Observers speculated that Kendrick had been building toward this moment strategically, positioning himself not only as a creative force but as a cultural disruptor capable of shifting the conversation at a glance. Meanwhile, Drake's role in the narrative was just as compelling. Unlike Kendrick, Drake's brand thrives on constant visibility. It maintains relevance through social media, collaborations, and chart dominance. But in moments like this, constant visibility also means constant scrutiny. Every expression, every movement, every reaction is dissected and interpreted by millions of fans and analysts worldwide. The subtle micro-expression captured during Kendrick's acceptance became an instant focal point, a lens through which his reaction to Kendrick's rise would now be judged. In addition to these personal dynamics, the larger hip-hop community was watching closely. Emerging artists, industry insiders, and critics alike began analyzing the moment for what it said about influence, strategy, and legacy. Kendrick's methodical approach demonstrated that dominance in the industry isn't only about sales or streams. It's about narrative control, timing, and the ability to command attention subtly yet unmistakably. His win and the surrounding reactions provide emphasizing the subtle ways power and influence operate in the modern music industry. And while fans debated the implications, one thing became undeniable. Kendrick Lamar had just flipped the awards game, and no one, not even Drake, was fully prepared for it. The stage was set, the narrative was unfolding, and the world was now watching, waiting to see what would happen next. As the aftermath of Kendrick's award win began to sink in, the conversation started to spread far beyond the walls of the venue. Clips of the moment circulated across social media, gaining millions of views within hours. Fans dissected every detail, the way Kendrick held himself on stage, the calm authority in his voice, and the subtle expressions exchanged in the crowd, particularly those of Drake, who seemed momentarily caught off guard. Analysts and fans alike began debating the meaning behind every gesture, creating a wave of speculation that quickly escalated into a full-blown discussion about influence, legacy, and dominance in modern hip-hop. What makes this situation unique is the layered dynamics at play. Kendrick's style has always been one of controlled precision. He doesn't rely on overt theatrics or social media rants to dominate a moment. Instead, he crafts an image of quiet authority that makes every action, every lyric, and every public appearance carry weight. This strategic approach contrasts sharply with Drake's usual visibility-driven method, where constant engagement, social media posts, and media coverage reinforces dominance. That contrast amplified the tension in the room and online during the award show. Fans began to connect dots that had previously seemed unrelated. Lines from Kendrick's recent songs were reinterpreted in light of his award win. Phrases that once sounded abstract or introspective now appeared as intentional foreshadowing. Some fans argued that Kendrick had been preparing this moment for months, carefully aligning his work, appearances, and public statements to culminate in a display of undeniable influence. Every detail, no matter how small, seemed to fit into a larger strategy. Meanwhile, Drake's reaction, though subtle, became the subject of intense scrutiny. Fans replayed clips, slowed them down, and analyzed micro-expressions, body language, and hand gestures. The conversation quickly became less about the award itself and more about what Drake's response indicated. Was he genuinely surprised, momentarily unsettled, or quietly reassessing his position in a landscape increasingly influenced by Kendrick's approach? Each interpretation fueled the debate, turning one night's award presentation into a global talking point. The social media amplification was unprecedented. Posts dissecting the event went viral across platforms like X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Hashtags began trending as fans argued over subtle cues, speculated on future collaborations or rivalries, and debated the long-term implications for the careers of both Kendrick and Drake. Even casual listeners, who may not follow every detail of the industry, were drawn into the conversation. The moment transcended the award show and became a cultural event, signaling that the stakes in hip-hop are now measured not only by charts and streams, but also by narrative control and strategic positioning. In addition to Drake's response, other industry figures began weighing in. Commentators and analysts offered perspectives on how this moment could reshape public perception, alter legacy discussions, and shift fan loyalties. Many noted that Kendrick's win was more than symbolic. It reflected a broader trend in which influence, authenticity, and calculated precision are becoming more important than raw visibility or commercial output. Young artists watching the event could see a blueprint for navigating the industry, learning that the subtleties of timing, delivery, and presence can often outweigh loud proclamations or constant media engagement. As the day progressed, the online discourse evolved. Some argued that Kendrick's approach signals a shift in the hierarchy of hip-hop influence. Others suggested that Drake's momentary reaction might inspire him to respond creatively, whether through music, social media, or other channels, potentially setting the stage for a high-profile narrative battle that captivates fans worldwide. Every rumor, speculation, and theory only added to the intensity of the moment. By evening, the conversation had taken on a life of its own. Clips of the award ceremony were being shared alongside commentary, reaction videos, and fan breakdowns. Analysts produced content connecting Kendrick's lyrical history, recent collaborations, and public appearances to the award night moment. Each new piece of media created additional layers of discussion, reinforcing the sense that this was not a standalone incident but part of a larger, ongoing narrative in hip-hop. Even broader cultural outlets picked up the story. Entertainment journalists highlighted the dynamics between Kendrick and Drake, framing the event as more than just a music award, but a reflection of shifting trends in influence, strategy, and legacy within the music industry. The award win became a talking point not only for music fans, but also for pop culture audiences, cementing the event's significance. And amid all the analysis, one thing became increasingly clear. Kendrick's calm, calculated approach had succeeded in doing what he intended, dominating the narrative without a single overt confrontation. His presence, his performance, and his subtle interactions had created a cultural moment that captured attention across the globe, leaving fans, peers, and industry insiders alike reflecting on what this means for the balance of power in hip-hop. In short, Kendrick Lamar's award win didn't just recognize his talent, it shifted the conversation. It created a scenario where influence, strategy, and narrative control became the main story. And with Drake still processing the moment, the stage is set for what could be the most compelling sequence of events in hip-hop in recent memory, leaving fans anxiously waiting for the next move in this evolving saga. The momentum from Kendrick Lamar's award win continued to intensify as the hours and days passed, transforming a single night into a narrative that dominated social media and industry conversations alike. Kendrick Lamar had accomplished something rare. He had turned an award into a statement without saying a single confrontational word. The subtlety of his actions created more impact than most artists could achieve with months of social media campaigns or aggressive publicity. Meanwhile, Drake, who is usually so adept at controlling public perception, found himself in an unusual position, one where the narrative seemed to shift around him rather than because of him. What made this moment so fascinating was how fans quickly began to reinterpret Kendrick's career moves leading up to the event. Every performance, interview, and social media post was examined for possible clues, as if the award night had suddenly unlocked a new lens through which to view his body of work. Lines from past songs were highlighted and debated, fan theories exploded across platforms, and hashtags like #KendrickDominates and #DrakeCaught-Off-Guard began trending internationally. Each detail, no matter how small, he accepted the award with his trademark composure, delivering a speech that was concise yet powerful. Unlike some artists who use award shows as platforms for drama or ego, Kendrick relied on subtlety, making every word and every gesture carry significance. Observers noted that this was not only about winning an accolade, it was about reinforcing his position in a way that no chart or sales figure alone could achieve. Drake's reaction, or more accurately his micro-reactions, became the focal point of discussion. Fans and commentators replayed footage, freezing moments frame by frame to analyze facial expressions, body language, and posture. Some argued that Drake appeared shocked, a rare moment of visible vulnerability from someone so seasoned. Others suggested he looked frustrated, as though he hadn't anticipated the psychological weight of Kendrick's subtle dominance. Either way, his subdued response only amplified the impact of Kendrick's win, proving that influence in hip-hop isn't solely measured in awards or numbers, but in perception and narrative control. Social media platforms acted as accelerants, spreading the footage, opinions, and theories to millions worldwide. TikTok and X were flooded with reaction videos, slow-motion clips, and commentary that dissected every nuance of the moment. YouTube channels produced detailed analyses comparing Kendrick's demeanor to past award shows, mapping the trajectory of his career, and predicting the potential impact on Drake's next moves. This collective scrutiny elevated the event from a single awards ceremony into a major cultural discussion, one where fans and critics alike debated power, influence, and the evolving hierarchy of hip-hop. Meanwhile, the conversation expanded beyond Drake. Observers began drawing parallels between Kendrick's calculated dominance and broader industry dynamics. Young Thug, for instance, became part of the discussion, not because of any direct confrontation, but because his situation represented another angle of influence and public perception within the music industry. Fans speculated whether Kendrick's approach subtly addressed systemic power shifts, with his understated victory acting as a demonstration of control and authority that transcends personal rivalries. The unfolding narrative created a fascinating tension between visibility and influence. Drake's constant presence in the public eye contrasts sharply with Kendrick's carefully measured appearances. In situations like this, constant visibility can become a liability, each gesture and each statement scrutinized under a microscope. Kendrick, on the other hand, thrives in calculated scarcity. By letting anticipation build and controlling the timing of his public actions, he effectively turned the award night into a microcosm of strategic power dynamics in modern hip-hop. Industry insiders began weighing in as well, emphasizing the subtle genius of Kendrick's strategy. Analysts highlighted that while Drake remains commercially dominant, moments like this award win showcase another type of power, one rooted in narrative control, timing, and cultural influence. They argued that Kendrick's victory demonstrated a unique form of authority, the ability to shift conversations, spark debates, and dominate perception without overt aggression. For artists and executives alike, this was a textbook example of strategic influence at work. Even casual fans felt the impact. Clips of Kendrick's moment were replayed endlessly, sparking debates not only about the award itself but about broader implications for the genre. Questions emerged. Who truly defines influence in hip-hop? How do subtle actions compare to overt displays of dominance? What does this mean for the next generation of artists watching and learning from these moves? And while the narrative was expanding, Kendrick remained in control. There was no rush, no unnecessary announcements, no overexposure. The way he orchestrated the moment ensured that attention remained firmly on him, while speculation about Drake and Young Thug's reactions continued to feed the discussion. In essence, Kendrick had created a ripple effect, where anticipation and interpretation became part of the story itself. By the end of this phase, it became evident that Kendrick Lamar's award win wasn't just a milestone. It was a masterclass in influence, strategy, and narrative control. Fans worldwide were engaged, social media was ablaze, and the industry was quietly taking notes. The question now wasn't whether Kendrick could maintain dominance. It was how this moment would reshape perceptions of power in hip-hop moving forward. The stage was set, the narrative was expanding, and everyone was waiting for the next move. A move that could either solidify Kendrick's mastery or push the conversation into a completely new direction. Either way, the world was watching, and nothing in hip-hop would feel the same again. As the days following Kendrick Lamar's award went unfolded, the ripple effects of that moment continued to grow, transforming a single night into a cultural phenomenon. Kendrick Lamar had not only captured an award, but had also redefined how influence and dominance could be perceived in hip-hop. While the spotlight initially highlighted the ceremony, the discussion quickly shifted toward narrative control, strategy, and the subtle ways Kendrick's presence reshaped the conversation. Fans, analysts, and industry insiders alike were captivated, dissecting every micro-expression, movement, and social media post. Drake's reaction remained a central focus. Unlike the overt displays fans are accustomed to seeing from artists in high-pressure moments, Drake's subtle response sparked more speculation precisely because of its restraint. Observers debated endlessly. Did he recognize the significance immediately? Was he recalculating his next move? The very fact that Drake, a master of public perception and media control, seemed momentarily unsettled amplified the impact of Kendrick's win. In moments like these, silence or subtlety can communicate more than words ever could, and Kendrick had mastered that art. Fans began piecing together Kendrick's actions and lyrics over the past months, trying to connect the dots. Songs that had once seemed personal or abstract were suddenly reinterpreted as calculated foreshadowing, each line adding depth to the narrative that Kendrick had been building. Social media exploded with theories, hashtag campaigns, and reaction videos, creating an online ecosystem that elevated the award moment into something far larger than its original context. TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube became flooded with content examining his demeanor, stance, and gestures, with fans debating every possible implication. The broader implications went beyond personal rivalry. Kendrick's subtle but commanding approach highlighted a different type of influence, one that is less about visibility and more about control of perception. Whereas Drake thrives on constant engagement, social media presence, and chart dominance, Kendrick's strength lies in crafting moments that force the audience to pay attention on his terms. This contrast created an intriguing dynamic, with fans and commentators framing the event as a lesson in the modern power structures of hip-hop. Even beyond the immediate rivalry, fans speculated that Kendrick's calculated display could be interpreted as commentary on broader power dynamics within the industry, further amplifying the stakes. Industry insiders weighed in, noting that Kendrick's strategy exemplified long-term thinking. Winning an award isn't just about recognition. It's about creating a moment that shapes public perception. Analysts argue that Kendrick's ability to maintain control, even in the midst of high-profile events, set a blueprint for others on how to assert dominance without overt confrontation. His measured approach, from lyricism to stage presence, illustrated that influence is often more powerful than visibility alone. Social media discourse continued to dominate the narrative. Fans dissected every frame of the award ceremony, replaying Kendrick's acceptance speech, his gestures, and the interactions between him and Drake. Slow-motion analyses highlighted micro-expressions and subtle cues, each one becoming evidence of Kendrick's influence and strategic precision. Every post, comment, and reaction reinforced the growing belief that Kendrick's actions were part of a calculated effort to command attention, control perception, and leave a lasting impact on hip-hop culture. The conversation also shifted to a more analytical tone. Critics and commentators explored what this moment said about the evolution of hip-hop influence. Some argued that Kendrick had demonstrated a new kind of power, one rooted in timing, precision, and perception rather than constant media saturation. Others suggested that the award win was as much about legacy as it was about dominance, positioning Kendrick as a cultural touchstone whose every move carries significance. Meanwhile, Drake's next steps became a subject of intense speculation. Fans and analysts debated whether he would respond through music, social media, or even performance, attempting to reclaim narrative control. Each potential move was analyzed in detail, reinforcing the sense that the stakes were higher than a typical awards ceremony. The tension was amplified further by Kendrick's restraint. By choosing not to overexpose himself, he forced Drake and the industry at large to operate on his terms. By this point, it was clear that Kendrick's win had transcended the award itself. It became a symbol of strategic influence, demonstrating that subtlety, timing, and control can outweigh even the most visible displays of dominance. Fans, analysts, and industry insiders all acknowledged that the moment would likely influence discussions around hip-hop for months, shaping narratives about influence, rivalry, and cultural impact. The stage was now fully set for the next chapter. With Kendrick firmly in control of the narrative, Drake and others were left to respond within the context he had established. The conversation, fueled by fan speculation, social media, and industry commentary, had reached a fever pitch. Every new post, clip, or statement was now interpreted through the lens of Kendrick's award night, and the stakes could not have been higher. As fans and critics waited in anticipation, one thing became increasingly clear. Kendrick Lamar had not just won an award, he had redefined the game, proving that influence is as much about strategy and perception as it is about recognition. The narrative was his to control, and the world was watching to see just how far he would take it. The tension surrounding Kendrick Lamar's latest award had reached a level few could have predicted. It wasn't just another accolade. It was a carefully orchestrated moment that altered the dynamics of influence in hip-hop. Kendrick Lamar had demonstrated a mastery of perception and narrative control that few artists could match, turning what seemed like a routine awards night into a moment that left Drake and the wider industry scrambling to catch up. As the aftermath of the awards circulated online, fans and commentators dissected every detail. Social media became a relentless hub of analysis. Micro-expressions, gestures, and pauses were replayed frame by frame. What once might have been considered insignificant now carried enormous weight. Drake's subtle reaction had become a central talking point, a rare moment where a superstar accustomed to controlling public perception appeared momentarily destabilized. Observers speculated endlessly. Was Drake surprised, frustrated, or silently calculating his next move? That ambiguity made the moment all the more compelling. Meanwhile, Kendrick remained deliberately measured. His presence, calm and deliberate, emphasized that he didn't need dramatics to dominate the narrative. Every movement, every word, and even every pause carried significance. Fans noted that his performance on stage was a masterclass in influence, a demonstration of control that relied on subtlety rather than overt confrontation. This strategic approach reinforced Kendrick's position as someone who commands attention on his own terms, reshaping the discussion of what power and dominance look like in modern hip-hop. The broader implications of this event extended far beyond the immediate rivalry. Analysts noted that Kendrick's actions highlighted a shift in how influence is perceived in the music industry. While Drake's success is rooted in visibility, streaming dominance, and consistent media engagement, Kendrick's authority derives from narrative control and cultural impact. The contrast was stark, and the implications for younger artists were clear. Influence is not only about exposure but also about strategy, timing, and the ability to create moments that shape conversations. Fans were quick to connect Kendrick's award night with his recent body of work. Lyrics that had previously seemed abstract or introspective were now reinterpreted as deliberate foreshadowing, part of a broader plan to assert dominance and influence. Each track, performance, and public appearance seemed to align perfectly with the timing of the award, suggesting a level of foresight and precision that reinforced Kendrick's reputation as one of the most strategic artists in hip-hop history. Drake's position in this narrative was equally fascinating. As someone who thrives on constant visibility, every micro-reaction became a source of speculation. Fans and analysts debated whether he would respond through music, social media, or public statements, and each potential move added another layer to the unfolding story. The unpredictability of Drake's next step, combined with Kendrick's deliberate restraint, created a tension that kept the hip-hop community and the world at large on edge. Young Thug's inclusion in these discussions added further complexity. While not directly involved in the award moment, his name became part of the broader conversation about influence, strategy, and industry politics. Fans speculated that his approach demonstrated that subtlety and timing could outweigh volume and visibility, creating ripples that extend far beyond the individual moment. The social media ecosystem played a key role in amplifying the impact. TikTok, X, Instagram, and YouTube were flooded with clips, reaction videos, and analyses. Fans debated every micro-expression, theorized about upcoming music, and speculated on potential responses from Drake and Young Thug. The online conversation became self-perpetuating, with each post and reaction fueling further discussion. Kendrick had effectively turned the award night into a multi-layered event that dominated cultural discourse for days. As the days continued, it became evident that this moment was more than a temporary headline. It was a turning point. Kendrick's win had demonstrated a new model of influence, one based not on constant exposure, but on narrative control, strategic timing, and subtle authority. The impact extended beyond personal rivalry, offering lessons for the industry and shaping the expectations of fans and emerging artists alike. By the end of this phase, the stakes were clear. Kendrick had established control of the narrative, leaving Drake and the broader industry to respond within the framework he had set. Every subsequent post, interview, or release would now be interpreted in the context of this moment. Kendrick's calculated victory had shifted the balance of influence, proving that the way you command attention can be just as powerful, if not more so, than conventional measures of success. In the end, Kendrick Lamar's award night wasn't simply about recognition. It was about authority, strategy, and mastery of perception. The ripple effects were felt across social media, the music industry, and fan communities worldwide. Drake, Young Thug, and the rest of hip-hop were now playing in a narrative space that Kendrick had expertly defined, and the question on everyone's mind remained: what would come next, and how would the world respond to the force Kendrick had unleashed? This wasn't just an award. This was a masterclass in influence, a moment that would be remembered as a turning point in hip-hop culture. This moment isn't just another award or headline. It's a seismic shift in hip-hop, and fans everywhere are witnessing history in real time. Kendrick Lamar has demonstrated that influence isn't just about streaming numbers or chart positions. It's about timing, presence, and narrative control. Meanwhile, Drake and Young Thug are now operating in the space Kendrick has defined, and every reaction, post, or release from them will be scrutinized through this lens. If you want to stay ahead of the conversation, now is the time to engage. Comment your thoughts, share your theories, and join the global debate, because this story is far from over. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to follow every twist, turn, and explosive moment as it unfolds. Trust us, you won't want to miss the next chapter in this unprecedented hip-hop saga. Fire!